What's up everyone? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today's video is going to be a pistol squat progression. This is going to be episode number 1. So we're going to have a total of 4 episodes. So episode number 1 is mainly going to focus on what you're going to need mobility-wise in order to achieve your first pistol squat. So the main areas we want to focus on are our hips, our hamstrings, and our ankles. So I'm going to show you 3 exercises for each of these. If you guys are looking for something a little bit more detailed, you can check out my app that has 2 full pistol squat programs on there to help you achieve your pistol squat. Starting off with our hamstrings, we're gonna do one of our first tests to see if you're mobile or flexible in your hamstrings. So we're gonna start with ultimately feet together, reaching for the ground, trying to have your hands touch. If you're feeling tightness here, you can always modify it. We're gonna just straddle our legs and then again, try to reach the floor. The reason why this is super important to have nice flexible hamstrings is during our pistol squat, we wanna have the mobility to be able to have our leg nice and high. And so you're gonna need that mobility and flexibility in order to have your leg roughly to where your hands are. So if we're gonna stand that up, it's gonna look like that. So ultimately when you do this one, we wanna be holding for around 30 seconds for our stretches. Nothing really more, you don't need to go for a minute or anything like that. Just a quick 30 seconds, you can kind of release it, and then we'll go back into that stretch. Majority of the stretches, I do always recommend 30 seconds. If you are a little bit tight on time, you can shorten that to 15 seconds, and I would recommend doing it twice. So moving on, we're gonna go down to the floor. Another stretch we're gonna do, also very similar to the pistol squat position, as it's here. We're gonna bend this knee sideways. We're gonna have our toe nice and flexed, trying to get that heel right off the ground, knee nice and flat, and you're gonna reach as far as you can forward, trying to get at least a whole hand past your foot. If you're here, you're still just a little bit tight, so work your way down and try to hold it. Same rules apply here, 30 seconds or 15 if needed. And then lastly for our hamstrings, we're gonna go into a seated version of that first one we did. So either legs out nice and wide into a straddle or into a pike position. You're gonna crawl your hands out, keeping your back nice and neutral. So making sure that your pelvis is tucked and you're not just arching your back to bend forward. You wanna keep this nice and neutral, walking through, and then trying to get all the way down to the ground. We're gonna hold here again for that 15, 30 seconds. Same thing with the feet forward. So we wanna make sure that we're not just rounding our leg low back and trying to reach forward. Keep everything nice and tall and squeezed, reaching forward as far as you can, keeping those legs nice and straight, and ultimately trying to touch the soles of your feet or even further past where your hands are past your toes. Moving on to our next body part is gonna be our hips. So we're gonna start standing. Grab something that's stable that you can use to brace yourself. So I'm using a squat rack here. We're gonna have it hugged with my right side. I'm gonna be lifting up my left leg, up nice and straight in front of me. Then we're gonna externally rotate, stay nice and parallel. We're not pushing our hips into the supporting surface, pulling up nice and tall, rotating it backwards, and then back down. You wanna do around 8 each leg, and you wanna make sure that you're doing both directions to make sure that you have full hip mobility as you're working through each part of the rotation. So this one's a great one to do to help improve your pistol squats, but it's also great for your regular squat. The next one we're gonna do is called the deep squat hold. So we're gonna be holding on to, again, something stable. We're gonna holding here, and you're gonna have your feet just slightly wider than our hips. We're gonna be going down into the deepest squat you can, walking your hands down, sitting into that squat, keeping your chest nice and high, making sure that we're not, again, rounding our low back. We want it nice and proud, and we're gonna sit here for as long as 30 seconds. I'm just gonna adjust my feet. A few things here is you wanna make sure that your heel is nice and flat, so we're not leaning too far forward, and my knees are not caving in at the bottom. So when I go down into my deep squat, if I was holding onto something, it would look like this from the front. So no knee caving in, and I'm not leaning backwards or too far forward into my heels. So this is gonna help with our mobility, because if you looked at a pistol squat, here would be the bottom of your pistol squat. So you wanna make sure that you can hit that bottom range with 2 feet, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to necessarily move on to the single leg. Last hip mobility exercise that we're gonna be doing is one to strengthen our hip flexors. So there's a couple ways to do this one. We're gonna start with our legs straight in front of us first, hands by our side. We're gonna lift the leg up nice and straight. Reason being is one of the key factors of a pistol squat that a lot of people struggle with is keeping that leg up the entire time during the movement. So we wanna strengthen that lower core hip flexor area by just first doing single leg, then you can progress it to 2 legs. The further your hands are, AKA closer to your ankles, the harder the exercise is gonna be. If even here is too difficult, we can always step our hands behind us, slightly lean back, and then lift through here. So those are the 3 exercises for our hips, and now we're gonna do our ankles. Last, we're gonna go over our ankle mobility. So for this one, I'm actually gonna take my shoes off. I prefer to do most of my mobility training with my shoes off. That's just a personal preference, totally up to you and in the environment you're in. We're gonna start off with an elevated surface. I'm using a bench, but if you're at home, you can use a chair or a box or whatever you have available. We're gonna bring one foot up, keeping it nice and flat, knee nice and square, so we're not letting it cave in, and we're not letting our hips push out as we lean forward. We wanna have our hips push forward right over our ankle as far as we can while maintaining a flat heel. So as soon as you start to feel that start to lift, bring your weight back and then hold it in that position. For an added stretch, you can always add a dumbbell as well if you find that you can't get deep enough into it. And again, we're gonna hold for that 30 seconds or a 15-second range, and we wanna make sure that we're doing both sides. Now, if you find one side is a little bit stiffer than the other, that's totally normal. We're not symmetrical. For me, my left ankle's a little bit stiffer than my right, so I can't get as far as I would like. So I just hold it a little extra longer, or I'll do an extra set on it just to make sure I'm getting that full stretch. So this is a great one to do. The next one we're gonna do is just almost like a Achilles stretch, but instead of against the wall, we're gonna do it on a elevated surface as well. So just using the base of a squat rack, but you can do this off a stair or a step. We're gonna hop up onto our toes. We're gonna let our feet fully sink down, just like we were doing a calf raise, but we're the bottom rep of it. We're gonna let it hold there. You're gonna feel a stretch right through your calves, letting it get as low as possible, letting it hold, and then coming back up. So there's two variations. We can do the slow calf raises basically, or we can step one foot down if it feels too much and do more of like an assisted just hold here. And again, you can brace yourself for balance and trying to get that stretch as much as you can. When you go down, if you start to feel like your foot starts to move back and forth with your heel and it doesn't stay square, just bring that range of motion up a little bit more. The last one we're gonna do, so now that we've stretched in a big flexion position, we're gonna go the opposite way. We're actually gonna point our toe. So you wanna make sure you stretch both positions of your ankle in order to have full mobility of that entire joint. So I'm gonna, again, use something for balance. I'm gonna point my toe and then let it come fully forward. Now, if this is not much of a stretch, you can always push your weight up a little bit more. And you're gonna feel it all the way through that front of your ankle. Most people are pretty stiff in this position and usually can only make it to here. And the reason being is because I'm a gymnast, so I'm used to that really big toe point. So most people don't have that. So if you're more of a broken ankle position, stay here and just slowly try to work it up. So that way it's a nice smooth line all the way down from the front of your shin to around the knuckles of your toes. So that is it for the mobility portion. Again, if you guys are looking for more detailed drills, definitely check out my app. Last thing we're gonna go over is some balance drills. Now, a lot of people struggle with just that single leg positioning where you're just balancing on one leg. So here are a couple of drills to help with that. So starting off, we're gonna be in this exact same position. We're gonna have our knee bent to start off, and you're just gonna simply hold here for 30 seconds. Some things I want you to think about is that in the supporting leg, we wanna have our quads nice and tight so we have tension through the leg, and also our toes, instead of being, say, like squeezed together, you wanna kinda like push out your toes as much as you can to widen your base of support as much as possible. Now, if this is too easy, we can also do it on something like a Bosu ball, or if you're at home, you can do it on a pillow, just to make that surface a little bit more uneven and challenge your body a little bit more. Next one we can do is just a progression of that one. We're gonna start on that single leg, and we're gonna start to move our body. We're gonna reach our hands out and our back leg outwards behind us. Try to move everything in sync, and again, keeping everything nice and stacked through our hips as we move from position to position. So from the side, everything's in, then we're gonna extend all the way out, keeping our core nice and tight, and then bringing it in. Pushing out, and then back in. As I'm doing it for myself, because my left leg's a little bit weaker, I do find that I'm putting a little more weight laterally, so I have to focus on pushing my big toe into the ground. So small cues like that, as you see your foot moving around, try to envision pushing that full foot into the ground. The last one is gonna be, again, another progression. We're gonna be starting here, and instead of just reaching out in front of us, we're actually gonna reach down below us. So again, we're increasing that range of motion. So we're starting up nice and tall. We're gonna reach down in front of us, and then back up. For this one here, again, you wanna make sure that as we're going down and reaching to the floor, we're not tilting into that hip, and we're keeping that knee nice and straight. We're not letting it cave in as we go down. As you progress this drill as well, you can play around with reaching in front of you, or to the side, or to the other side. So whether it's on the inside of your foot or on the outside of your foot, just playing around with challenging your balance a little bit more. Just like the first drill, all of these three drills can be done on an uneven surface, whether it's a Bosu ball, a pillow, or even those really thick foam pads that you use to just kind of give your knee a little bit more comfort when you're doing stretches. That's it for today's video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you have any questions, drop them below. Episode number 2 is gonna be going over our single leg strengthening exercises. So now that our leg is nice and mobile and balanced, we're now gonna strengthen it to get ready for our pistol squats. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, and comment, and I'll see you guys next time.